Welcome to the Social Justice War Room, the podcast where we talk about social justice in fiction, reality, and everything in between. My guest today is an old friend who I've known for a long time and who's done a lot of great things as a teacher of science arts, as a YouTuber, as a painter, and as an expert in junk, which is a good thing. Please welcome Caroline Hambright. How are you doing, Caroline?
I'm okay. How are you, Neil?
Good. So we met in a youth group in high school. That was towards the beginning of this century.
Yeah, right.
Since then, there's been two economic collapses and a pandemic.
Oh my God, you're right.
So, but you've done a lot of good, and I've seen on top of your time as a certified teacher, you run a YouTube channel, Brighter Days. That's a play on your name, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's Brighter Days.
Good. And what you do there, that seems aimed for a younger audience, so that kids can do it too.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to make it accessible to both adults and kids because as a teacher, I mean, kids love YouTube. It's one of their favorite things. And I mean, they practically worship YouTubers. And not that that was my goal or anything like that, but I wanted to make my content accessible to them because I can. And so, as hard as it was, I, cut out all the swearing and cursing that comes along with building things out of garbage for the kids, for their sake.
So a lot of the kids ended up watching your YouTube videos as well as being in your class.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird situation because, I wanted to, remain professional at work, but also I wanted to share all of my knowledge with all these great kids who I saw every day. And so eventually kids caught wind of it and a lot of them watched. So that was fun.
Good. And I imagine that puts you in kind of a weird position because from when I was a teacher, I remember that even if you do all the cool things, you're still the authority figure. Did that conflict kind of come up?
No, that's never really come up for me because I'm the kind of teacher that's like definitely the fun one. I've just always thought of myself as just kind of a big kid. And so, I think that because I work with younger kids, first of all, I work with elementary school kids. And I think a lot of times there's a misconception that kids are really hard to control. Elementary school kids are not. They listen to the things that you tell them. They generally listen. It's really rare that you get a kid who straight up will just be like, no, I don't have to do that. You're not my real dad or like whatever. That's super, super rare. So generally, I have always found that I can have a lot of fun with kids and also still then, if they're getting out of hand, you really just have to say, 1, 2, 3 eyes on me. And they say 1, 2 eyes on you. And then they're staring straight at you. Like that's 99.9% of the time. So
yeah.
Well,
it's a good perspective to make things engaging enough that you don't have to be exerting controls on them.
Yeah. I try and make my teaching engaging, both on YouTube and in the classroom. I try and keep them laughing, keep them smiling, because that keeps them wanting to come back and wanting to listen. So yeah, that's generally the goal.
Do the parents who see your videos have any concerns? Because while you are staying safe, you're still working with like heavy metals and electronics and things that can explode.
I've never had a complaint from a parent about my YouTube channel, so like knock on wood.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the high point was for me of all the things you made was the laser menorah.
I'm glad that was a high point. that was a high point for me too.
Definitely. I hope
Yeah.
George Soros has compensated you fairly for that as part of the plan conservatives keep making up.
No, there's actually a funny story that I don't know if you saw the video that I made about this. I'm not sure if I took this video down or not, actually.
I think you
Now that
still
I think,
have it when the cops came because it was
yeah, the one where the
extremist.
cops came. So yeah, a weird thing happened there. Where I don't know, some neighbor, we don't know who, must have driven by, and we tried to make this thing look like a sci-fi menorah. That was like the goal. And lasers, I don't know if you know this, like don't really show up unless there's particulates in the air. So we were like, great, let's use a fog machine. So it, there's like smoke and lasers coming out of this thing. And I don't know, I guess, and since we put some like electronic parts on the outside, I don't know, I guess apparently someone drove by and thought it was meant to look like an oven, and that it was like some big, like, anti-Semitic
Oh God,
statement.
that's
And I mean, looking back, I'm like, okay, I guess I can see how you would think that looks like that, but like it was a pretty big stretch. And the cops came to our door and were asking us all kinds of questions, and were not nice to us at all. So
yeah,
that was interesting.
yeah. One thing I admire about your videos is you're candid about the fact that you have ADD or ADHD. Which do you prefer?
The thing is when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with ADD, inattentive type. And I'm not hyperactive. So, I mean, I have energy when I want to or whatever, but I'm not I was never a hyperactive person. So it kind of did annoy me when they lumped it all together, but whatever. Do what you got to do. I'm not going to get mad about it. But yeah, I do try and be candid about it. And I'm moving forward. I haven't actually posted a lot of YouTube videos lately. Just life has been, what it is,
Yes, quite.
changing, getting in the way, and things change. And I haven't had, you know, whatever, things have been different. And so, and I haven't been teaching. I stopped teaching during the pandemic. It was a little too much for me, a lot of,
Yeah.
most teachers were really powering through, and they're wonderful, great, they're saints, but it was just too much for me. I'm a highly sensitive person. I am really empathetic. I'm really, I have all this stuff going on, and it was just too much for me. And so I quit for a while.
I understand completely. It's unfortunate that being a teacher is a huge responsibility, and you our system doesn't give nearly the amount of actual support needed to carry on that responsibility beyond just words about saying you're a
I
saint,
mean,
which
it it was already bad enough before the pandemic. Teachers were
yeah,
already not getting paid enough, having too much on their plates. And then with this on top of it, it was like, forget about it.
yeah,
It was just, there was that time at the beginning where all the parents were like praising the teachers. But now, honestly, from what I've heard from my friends, we've kind of gone back to even worse than where we were before, of like parents really just not supporting, and parents, not coming in. Well, I think that's not coming into the classrooms. Sorry,
no
what
worries.
I meant to say, but that might be more because of actual COVID. But anyway, yeah, just parents being really unsupportive and just dumping everything onto teachers, and administrations dumping everything onto teachers. In fact, my teachers today, I'm subbing right now, just being a substitute.
Yeah.
The teachers at the school I was at today were out protesting because the district wants to require them to stay at school until 4:30.
Wow.
Like, even if they're done with their work for the day, so that's never been a thing. It's like, you can't make them stay if they're done,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm off on a tangent here because, as you mentioned, I do have ADD. Um, what
I'm
were we
all,
talking about?
it's very similar to how I am. And this, I mean, it definitely is all connected. Like with your work, you do have to synthesize a lot of different things, and the things that we can't ignore with the pandemic, with the uh, income inequality. I assume a lot of parents just can't give the kids the proper support at home when they're working.
I assume, yeah, that's a huge part of it.
And
Yeah.
it's unprecedented territory, and the fact that there isn't an end in sight, this just seems to be something that's going to keep going. And while the danger is lessened thanks to the vaccine, it's not erased thanks to people who won't take the vaccine.
Right. That's a whole thing too. And I'm going in there as also as an immunocompromised person too. So that's
Oh
like a whole
God.
other layer added onto it. That's like super scary. Spoiler alert, the kids do not stay 6 feet away.
No.
It just doesn't happen. It's not possible, you know? So we do our best, but I do think actually my district is doing a really good job of like testing kids. You know, they
Yeah.
test kids like randomly all the time, and there's actually been really low transmission here. So I feel okay about going in.
That's
You know?
good. It's definitely a risk. But
Yeah.
one thing you said during your videos is you got into painting because you had a lot of canvases available.
When did I say that? Yeah. When did I say that? I don't
It
know.
was in your
I don't know what
last
you're
video
referring
when
to.
you were talking about the future of your channel and
Oh,
how you had to step away from teaching. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I had to step away from teaching. You know, I was getting unemployment. There was like financial ability at the time for me to be able to start doing more art and kind of dive into a different career and doing that. I was teaching privately and, you know, also. And so I was kind of able to have the time and the space to be able to do it. So I'm really actually thankful for the pandemic in that respect. But yeah, so I started painting and I basically started painting murals. I started painting a mural because at the beginning of the pandemic, like very beginning, when you still couldn't order stuff online, everything was too backed up. I had some canvases. I was like, well, I might as well paint. I have all this extra time. Painted all my canvases, didn't have any more. We couldn't go to the store. It was really early. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just painting on the wall. I don't care. And I painted this mural on the wall and it turned out pretty good. And everyone was like, oh my God, you can do this for money. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this for money. So I started painting murals for people and I did do it for money. So that was really cool. And
It's great.
yeah, it kind of dropped off though, because, you know, as I mentioned, I have ADD and there are certain things that I'm really good at and there are certain things that I'm really bad at. And marketing myself is something that I don't know how to do and I don't know how to research how to do. And nobody offered me help. So I just kind of didn't do it. And what ended up then happening though is since I didn't have murals, is I started getting out my oil paints and doing more landscape, like plein air painting, like taking the easel out and going outside. And that is what I really started falling back in love with, because, you know, I've done art since I went to art school for college and I've done it my
Okay.
whole life, but this is just something that I really, really, really fell in love with. And I really wanted to talk to you about it because in my next video that I'm going to make, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, is about how the kind of painting that I do, it's called alla prima, which means all at once. So you sit, it's like, you know, a 2 or 3 hour process where you sit and you make a painting all at once. And it's a direct
Nice.
method of painting, as opposed to a method where you like layer, and layer. It's not like that.
Yeah.
So
And a lot
it's a
of,
really cool method
yeah.
because it's actually been very helpful for managing ADD and like actually being really aware of my attention and where it is. So that's been really cool. And I'm excited for my next video to talk more about that.
Great. And you're still in Santa Barbara, so there's no shortage of beautiful landscapes to paint.
True. Yes.
And but it also seems to connect back to the environmental message because the things you're painting are at risk.
Right. And so that was kind of part of the thing with like getting started back with art, is that I just wanted to paint pretty things. Like, the worst thing for an artist is to just sit there thinking of ideas and being like, oh, that idea is not good enough. Oh, that idea is not good enough. Because then you never get anything done. So I said, you know what? I don't need to have a good idea. I just need to paint something nice and pretty. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. And that's how I got back into it after like a long time of being like, oh, my idea is not good enough. Oh, my idea is not good enough. Like if I'm going to make fine art, it has to like really mean something. But in doing that, what I found is that it really does mean something, is because I'm painting all these landscapes that, might be gone soon. And I think that's really important. And I'm getting out into nature, and I'm now, I've always appreciated nature, but I think going out and painting it gives a way deeper appreciation for it. And so, being able to immortalize those things on a canvas, I think is important.
It is, and since you take a kind of impressionist approach when you paint, where your movements are how it makes you feel with the brush?
No, I would say more like, no, I think it's really just more, I'm looking for composition, color, value, shape, all of that. I'm really looking to make something that looks nice. And the brushwork, I would say, really is just more about finding those shapes. I'm not really thinking that deeply about it. There's no way to think that deeply about it when you're trying to figure out the exact ratio of the color that you're trying to match, or the exact shape and the ratio of the size. Like, it's a lot to think about at once. So like, that's the only thing that I can think about. And that's why it's so rad for ADD, is because it's this like meditative process of looking at these colors and shapes and putting down, like trying to capture exactly what you see. It's a thing in my life that I have no trouble focusing on completely. And we might call that a hyper focus, or like a lack of being able to tell time. And because that's what is happening in an ADHD brain, right? Is like, it's just like a complete lack of being able to understand the time that's passing, and being so consumed in what you're interested in that like nothing else matters. And so like, that's what hyper focus is. And it can seem like a superpower, and it is a superpower, but it can also be really detrimental, because then I like, don't eat. So that can be a problem. But with the alla prima painting, it's cool because there are points in the painting when it makes sense to take a break. And so when I get to that point, I do take a break. And so it's like, it's like been this way of just being really, really hyper aware of my awareness, which I think has been helping me in other areas of my life as well.
Well,
managing my ADD.
Neurodiversity, since I have ADD on top of autism, you and a lot of other people I've talked to on these different spectrums all have our own unique ways of managing the world and coping with the challenges faced and redirecting the energy. So I definitely relate to what you're saying, and I'm glad you found like a space for that, because hyper focus feels good.
Yeah, it does feel good. It's something that I've always known about myself, that I like have the ability to do. Like, I would sit and do Legos as a kid for 12 hours a day and just be like, this is the greatest I've ever felt, this is the best day of my life. Or I would build those parade floats. I don't know if you remember, I would do the summer solstice parade floats. It would be like 2 months of pure hyper focus, and it was glorious. But I would also like truly not eat, and then I would crash and have low blood sugar, and it was just, I'd start crying, and it would be like bad news. So I just have been trying to be more aware of that, even though, it feels so good. It just is, it's also like not healthy. So I don't know, this method of painting has like really helped me work on it more. So I'm excited about that.
And you also have help in your videos. I see some of your friends and coworkers showing up to help, which is important because to catch you when you fall, so to speak.
True. Yeah, I do like yeah, with the videos I was making before when I was like making stuff out of garbage, yeah, it was really helpful to have a friend with me to help me make those and help me film and everything. Yeah, a lot of those friends that you see in those videos have moved away or, you know, whatever. And so I'm kind of looking for people right now to kind of help me with filming. I've been kind of struggling with figuring out my process of filming during painting because I'm literally so hyper focused on painting. It's hard
Yeah.
to think about filming too. So yeah,
Well,
been
that's
trying to work that
why
out.
one of the reasons why I created this podcast, and to reconnect with people and to forge connections between people, and to, in this particular moment in history, try to make people think they're less alone.
That's awesome. I think the podcast is great. I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. And in the time since we met around high school, obviously bad things have happened. What good has happened?
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
I mean, for
I
me,
mean,
it's getting married, getting a cat, and doing comics. My time as a special ed teacher, and Breath of the Wild.
oh God, Breath of the Wild. Can we just take a moment because God, that game is so good.
Oh yeah.
And I have to say too, Neil, I've watched your art progress and grow over the years. I mean, I remember we were in that group together in high school and you were like, I don't even want to do it. Like, I can't draw. Like you were having such a hard time. And now I see you just like putting out all these comics all the time and they look fantastic. Like
Thank
you
you.
worked so hard and it really shows. And that makes me so happy, you know, as your friend and as an art teacher.
That's great, because
Yeah.
monetization of these things remains to be seen, but in terms of the fulfillment of just doing it, I'm glad I was able to get to a place where I could just make myself get past the doubts that still just hang with me.
Yeah, that's the most important part. Monetization, you know, that's something that, you know, for me, that's a double-edged sword and it's something that adds a huge extra layer on top of art that is sometimes really great and sometimes is really terrible. So
Yeah.
I would almost recommend just keep it being fun. You know, if you're enjoying it, just, you know, just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before we close out, one final question. So, what's the next communication you've gotten from Master Soros?
Master Soros?
Yeah, I think he was happy with the Menorah because it was a component for the Jewish space laser that Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about.
I hate to say this, Neil, but I don't know the reference that you're making. I'm sorry, I don't know who that
No,
is.
it's better because she's an insane Republican
Oh,
congresswoman.
the Jewish space laser. Of course, of course. Yeah, that really cracked me up. I think I reposted the video when that came out.
You did, yeah, you did on one of my Facebook
I'm like,
threads.
pick me.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
And funny story too is that laser was full disclosure, a very powerful laser that luckily my friend, the electronic engineer, fully knew how to deal with. But when the cops came to my door, I actually, my first thought was like, oh my God, it's the FAA or like it's the, they're coming because of the laser. They can,
yeah,
I downed a plane. Oh no. No, it wouldn't happen. The science makes that not happen.
yeah.
that was my fear.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Carolyn. It was good to talk to you again, and I hope that everyone listening checks out your channel and your videos.
Yeah, please do. You can find me on Instagram at Insta Brighter Days. I post there a lot. And you can find my YouTube channel, Brighter Days, but you probably want to put my name, Caroline Hambright, with it because I think there's a lot of songs called Brighter Days. That's messing up my SEO. So yeah, find me in those places. I hope to see you all
Yeah,
there. And Neil, this is fantastic. It's so nice to talk to you and catch up with you again.
thank you. Thank you for listening, everybody.